Fresh and
All right, welcome back to another episode of Fresh and Buds. I'm your host, Tommy Fresh, and you are all of my buds. And today we are joined by a bud that some of you might recognize from watching or listening to this show. It is Greg, aka Darth Prentiss, aka the producer of this show. I wanted to get him on, and you know what? I twisted his arm a bit, and here he is. How you doing, Greg?
Dude, I'm good, Tommy. Just quit twisting my arm, though.
Yeah, well, you know, I'm very aggressive when I approach my guests, and it's been a common it's a common issue, I know, and people have been complaining, but you know, I keep doing it. I can't help myself. But we have a great show for you this week. I just got back from Baltimore, like, I don't know, less than 12 hours ago, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to learn about Greg, and you know, we're going to dip into you know, what happened in Baltimore, because it was a huge weekend. But before we get to all that, I do want to shout out the who the show is brought to you by, and that is you, the patrons, on Patreon. If you want to check it out, it is in the show notes in the link tree. You know, you get some little bonuses there. You get a Robbing Club membership card, which Greg designed, actually, and they look sleek. They're awesome. You get stickers. You get access to some bonus content, like the extra packs from the Bud Rush Bellow that we open, you know, every Wednesday evening, 9:30 Eastern. So not Greg. See, this is the problem. I work with a Greg and a Gary, like mostly, and there's two G's, and every once in a while, one of them slips out. So Gary, aka Mr. Viz, is on the show with me on the Bud Rush Bellow, 9:30 Eastern on the YouTube. If you're watching the YouTube right now, you should give it a nice little subscribe. And if you're listening and you have a YouTube account, go give the Fresh and Buds YouTube a subscribe, because we are trying to get to 500 subscribers, so I can do a Leviah cosplay and Gary can be a rabbit that is dead. And that is just basically everything that we want. And also, if you subscribe, I don't know how I'm going to do this yet, but over the weekend, I was given a nice little content creator appreciation kit. So I have some promos here. The good deeds don't go unnoticed, which is very nice. Shout out to Alex Norville, the content creator aficionado over at LSS. Very good guy. He's awesome. And he gratefully, I'm grateful that he gave me a nice kit to help spread the love with the buds, because you've all been so great. So I'm going to figure out how to give those out and what way I can kind of maybe do a little bit of a contest giveaway with it. So we're going to do that. I also got like a playmat and some of the what they call resource tokens, the metal ones. So we will figure it out.
Dude, which playmat did you get?
Frostbite. So it's actually it's right here. You know what? We'll bring it up for the YouTube, you know, watchers. There's the Frostbite.
Look at that. Look at that.
Very pretty. Very pretty.
I hate getting frostbites, but that is a nice looking piece of art. I can't refute that.
Yeah. And we'll figure out a cool way to give that away. And yeah, I mean, I know that frostbites are on the outs based on living legend points. I mean, look at Blitz. You know, we just saw Icelander and Oldham hit. So on Friday, so tomorrow when you're listening to this, no more icy stuff except for, I guess, Lexi in Blitz. Oldham, spoiler alert, for the later in the show, won the Pro Tour, just got 200 LL points, so he's getting close too. But we will all talk about that. But mainly check out the Bud Rush Bellow. And normally now I would say and shout out Greg, the producer, but he's on the show today. So if you want to say anything, Greg, go ahead and say it right now.
What?
What?
So the wheels have fallen off in a very funny way. What am I shouting out?
Yourself. I was throwing it to you, Greg, because you're the producer.
Oh,
this is when I normally.
I thought you were talking about normally on the Bud Rush Bellow. All right, Greg, what do you want to say about that?
No, it's okay. I'm sure you'll just edit something in like you always do and make some silly joke.
I definitely will not leave this interaction in there. That would not be funny. Nobody would enjoy that.
Well, it's actually kind of interesting, and you can leave this in that I'm getting to give editing notes real time in a show, which is very cool.
Yeah.
So,
cut that part out, Greg. That part,
leave that in.
Part where you were talking.
Clip it. So anyway, so that's all the housekeeping. Check all that stuff out. We're very grateful for all the Patreons and just the buds in general. Check out the Buds Discourse, the best place to be. All of that is in the link tree below. Now, Greg, welcome, my friend. How are you? What is new? What is going on with you?
Thanks, man. I am super excited to be here. It's really surreal to be on this side of the how's it going, everybody? Welcome to Fresh and Buds. It's super, it's really cool and really weird. I'm good, man. My family just got a border collie puppy a few days ago. I dropped a photo of them, Dory, aka Dorothy. Almost named the dog Azalea, but my wife liked Dorothy better, so it's fine. Took them to the vet, found out they have worms and some other stuff, so that's been a gross adventure. I did so much cleaning in my house today that I don't normally do because I usually put that off until I absolutely have to, and I absolutely had to today. So besides that, I'm really good, man. I loved watching Pro Tour coverage this weekend when I could sneak it in, between hanging out with the family and stuff. And I'm just so hyped that Mara from Blackwing Studios crushed the Pro Tour weekend. We can get to that later. Just super good, dude. It's been a great weekend and week for Flesh and Blood.
Yeah, it really has, and sorry about the dog, and sorry that the wife you didn't want
puppy stuff,
Yeah, I get it, and sorry that the Azalea cult couldn't claim your dog as their own, but I'm sure they'll still try because that is one thing I've learned about the Azalea cult. They are a cult, so
yes.
So I had asked you to come on, a little bit ago, when you first started doing producer stuff, because I just wanted to talk with you, right? And you've been a great bud and just a good friend, and you've been awesome. And also, you kind of represent a kind of demographic of Flesh and Blood, and maybe just card games in general, right? That doesn't really get talked about, and that demographic is someone that is an adult who just does not have the time to go to armories or big events or anything like that. Now we will get to the fact that that's about to change. You're going to be able to go to Battle Harden, aka the Brawl in Pittsburgh at the end of the month, which is very exciting. But these people exist, and someone might ask, well, why does Greg keep staying invested in the game, and maybe that's the question that we're seeking out to answer here. So why is that?
Yeah, man. It's kind of funny. I probably a lot of TCG players. I get a little bit obsessive when I find a new game that really clicks with me, right? That's definitely what happened with Flesh and Blood for me. But I just, I don't have. It's kind of a perfect storm of reasons why I don't really get to events. I'm a dad. I have an 11-year-old, a 2.5-year-old, and a 5-month-old. So I'm also the primary caregiver for my 2 younger kids. My wife is way smarter than me and has a way better job than I could ever dream of getting. So she works and I take care of the kids at home. So with doing that for her job, we actually moved recently out to Kansas, and I live in a town in Kansas, really cute little town, but there's not a game store within almost an hour drive of me. Oof. So I don't really have a game store I could even go to play armories at. So that is definitely a factor in all that, but also just there's just something about this game that's that tickles this really interesting itch in my brain for like playing and deck building. I don't know. I can't put it down. I can't get it out of my brain, and I just enjoy thinking about it too much to not,
Yeah, I understand that too, right? Because I know we've both played Magic, and Magic is it's got its merits for sure. And I always say I don't want to poo poo Magic. It's not the show. I'll start a different podcast for that.
That should be a new Patreon tier where it's like Tommy rants about Magic.
It's funny enough. Like, I'm so not involved, like, at this point, that I don't even have reasons to kind of slam dunk on it anymore. Although it is easy, right? I feel like I'm Shaquille O'Neal playing in rec ball, right? To be honest. So
right.
But yeah, I understand where you're coming from, especially with the deck building in this game, right? Because it's so on rails to a point, and it inspires. And I'll say this after I finish this thought, but like, it inspires like really creative solutions to things in deck building, right? Because you're kind of like trapped into what this hero does and what it wants to do, but you have to make these creative decisions to figure out matchups. And a great example is Jim Kinzolka, who we had on the show last week. We just saw the list. He sent me the list. It's in the Buds Discord of the.
Boy, did he!
Oh yeah, and Jim, and he is super, super humble, and he's great. And you look at that list, and you're like, this guy is a mad scientist. And there's like card choices that were baffling all of us. And until you talk to him, you kind of understand them, and it's very cool. So I understand that now. Before Flesh and Blood, where did your love for TCGs start?
So I started playing, I guess, to go as far back as it actually is. Pokemon TCG came out, and I was enamored with that as a kid. Like most of us, I think, who are about our age. I didn't really play the game. I collected the cards and then pretended to play the game with the cards. It's so funny. I vividly remember when I was like maybe 13, and I had my binder of all of my Pokemon cards, and I walked into Gold Mine Comics in Grand Rapids, Michigan, where I used to live. And I set this binder on the table, and I think my mom or dad or both of them were there, and I was convinced I was going to get like $200 for all these Pokemon cards, right? And this like 40-something-year-old like archetypical comic store worker looked through my binder and was like, give you $40 for it. Because I didn't have anything good. It was just like, 11-year-old Greg was like, oh, these are perfect. Who would not pay me $200 for these? But so that's where TCG started for me. And then it ended from there until probably 2016 or 2017, when one of my good buddies was just like, hey, I'm getting together with some friends to play Magic. And up till this point, I was really big into board games, but I had never touched a trading card game besides Pokemon. Like, I was peripherally aware of what Magic was because I had other friends who would buy packs of cards for buddies for birthdays. But I go over there and I get handed, it's my buddy who and a group of his friends who I don't really know, who are playing Commander together, right? So they're playing multiplayer Magic. And one of them's like, oh, you can sit in and play. And they give me this like really weird, like blue-green ramp deck in Commander. I couldn't tell you anything else about it, what it was. I just remember reading like a ton of blue cards and having no idea what I was doing and being really intimidated. And it wasn't a very good experience. But then like 6 or 8 months later, they invited me back over and I watched for a while and I played a different deck that was not blue. And then I was like, oh, okay, this is interesting. And then from there, it was just like crack for me because I started looking at stuff online and watching game nights content, and it was all over from there. From there, I I actually roped my son into playing with me. And he and I went to a Theros Beyond Death two-headed giant pre-release. That's the only like sanctioned trading card game event I've ever been to.
Wow.
And that was right before COVID happened. That was in January of 2020.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I did that. I played Magic for a while, and then Panini happened, and I kept playing Magic online a little bit throughout that. But then I don't remember how it happened or how or where I saw information. Oh, actually, you know what? That's a lie. I do remember. I had just gotten introduced to Discord through the pandemic. I'm like such a boomer. I didn't know what Discord was before that.
I'm the same. I still don't know how to figure it out.
I don't know, man. I joined Garbage Andy's Discord because I would watch him on Twitch play Magic. Then he started talking about Flesh and Blood. And then he was like, by the way, I'm going to be on this podcast with this dude named Tommy. You guys should check it out. And I did. And that's how I discovered your podcast. And from there, I was like, okay, this seems kind of cool. And I watched the calling in Las Vegas that Tyler Horsepool won, not knowing literally anything about how the game worked. But I was just like, this is really interesting. And I'm into this. And then that was the tipping point for me where I was like, I'm going to order some cards. So instead of like ordering a box, I bought, oh my gosh, this is so funny now thinking about it. Somebody was selling like bulk commons with heroes in like a 4-pack of like starter decks for like $20 on eBay. So I bought that, and that's how I started playing Flesh and Blood.
I mean, and I remember, shout out to Garbage Andy. I know Garbage Andy's taking a little bit of break from content, and he had say that they had for a while kind of taken a break from Flesh and Blood stuff, and I get it. He was making he was getting his flowers doing Magic, and I understand that, and we miss him. But I remember you hanging out in his Discord, and then and then you're like, all of a sudden you're in my Discord, and all right, Darth's awesome. He's hanging out. He knows good people, and something that always stood out to me, especially as we've gotten to know each other more, because you are usually someone that's like, hey, you should get this person on, right? And I'll say this: a lot of people say that to me, but I listen to you because you are a content consuming, monster, right? You watch a lot of content and you consume a lot of content, which I appreciate, because I am not the best at doing that, right? I'm really not. So I've wondered, and I know you play the game like Talishar, and you've played like a lot of webcam games. You've hopped into the drunk UPF that we do in the Buds Discord. Join the Discord.
Discord.
We got to get another one of those going. But do you find that content consuming helps you kind of stay in touch with the game when you don't really have the time to kind of go out and play?
Totally, yeah, like without question. Like if it's funny to think about anyway, but like without technology where it is, and like the ability to have content beamed to my phone, right? Without that, I definitely wouldn't be connected like to the community, to this game, anything like that. Like I said earlier, like being a trophy husband, like that also gives me a lot of extra time to be able to consume content. With my kids being younger, I can get away a lot of the day with having like an earbud in and be listening to a podcast while I'm hanging out playing with my kid, while we're going on a walk, anything like that. So I'm kind of passively filtering a lot of stuff in. And then every now and then, if and when my kids still feel like taking naps, I get to watch extra stuff too. But yeah, content and podcasts especially were like, how it feels like I'm able to be like having this conversation with these people, but I'm just the fly on the wall, right? So I'm just like, I'm hanging out, I'm getting that like adult interaction that I don't really get much beyond, my wife, because we have small kids and they tire me out, and then my wife is tired when she gets home. So a lot of times it's like, yeah, we could go out and try and do something, but also just lay in bed and go to sleep early because we're old. So yeah, content has definitely helped keep me in the game, helped keep me interested about stuff, and it's been great.
Yeah, which is really cool too, right? Because you know, I think a lot of content creators don't even think about that, right? When they're making their content, and you know, I think it's like a lot of it's just passion for us, but like I think we also got to think about as content creators, if there's any listening or any potential ones listening, I think that you got to think about like you're giving something to people that they can, you know, really, you know, kind of maybe supplement their life with, which is I mean might sound a little pretentious or whatever, like I'm like oh my
I mean,
fresh
like
and
you're,
fresh
you're
and
basically
buds
the
is
messiah of podcasts.
yeah,
right?
fresh and buds is the
So-
best thing that ever happened to people, you know. But but that's definitely not true. But like you know, it's very cool, and you know, I want to know from you, and I didn't put this in the show notes, but it just came to me. Wait, who are some of your favorite Flesh and Blood content creators, excluding this podcast, obviously?
Yeah, so like obviously Fresh and Buds is my favorite. I'm contractually obligated to say that, but we don't. I'll edit that part out too. So there's a lot that I really enjoy listening to. I really like the Banished Zone with Bryn and Chris. They're awesome. I think just the perspective that they have on card gaming world is really refreshing and different from a lot of other. Here, let me pitch a bunch of podcasts to your podcast listeners
Sure.
while I'm here. But yeah, I like that one. I listen to Flesh and Pod. I listen to most of the stuff Flake does. What else do I listen to?
I mean, you're hitting all like the buds right there, right? Like Flesh.
Yeah,
I mean, my whole weekend was with Flake, Logan, and Charmer.
I know, right? And I am jealous of that. I wish I could have swung the Pro Tour. It'd have been a hell of a weekend to be at. But yeah, I'm. And now that I'm on the spot, I'm sure there are like 9 that I'm going to remember as soon as we hop off this call, and I'll be like, oh yeah, them. Why didn't I say them? But
Well, here's one of my favorite podcasts that I actually got to meet one of the members in person for the first time this weekend. The Attack Action Podcast. I got to meet Isaac Jessen, who is just the best. And Isaac, if you're listening, and we know that you are, maybe you aren't, but I wish we got more time with each other. I know you had to leave Sunday because, you know, you got a busy life, but the Tommy Taylor, Isaac and Colin hang's gotta happen. And I met with the AGE folks this weekend, and I want to get out to LA, but you know, eventually. It's an expensive flight.
it's fun. It's funny. A little bit of foreshadowing. For when we get to the fresh faves, my favorite equipment piece. My mind was blown. I think it was. I don't remember which episode it was. We just did a podcast where Colin. I think it was. They were drafting their favorite cards from Outsiders, and one of the names that Colin used freaking killed me. Like I laughed so hard. Can't believe I didn't make the connection too, because it's like such a dad joke. But anyway, yeah.
Well, I guess we'll get to that one. So yeah, I mean it's pretty cool. Now, obviously, there's a lot of content out there right now, but I don't think we've hit the ceiling for sure. You know, I think there's a lot of room for new podcasts, new YouTubers, new whatever. Now, do you think there's a genre of content that Flesh and Blood is missing, Greg?
No, there might be. I was thinking about this a little bit after you sent me the show notes. Thinking back, I guess, to like some of the Magic content that I used to watch all the time. Like I think, and to be fair, it's quite possible that there's a couple content creators like this who exist that I just don't know about yet.
Mm-hmm.
But somebody who's like all budget decks all the time, that like does not brew a CC deck more than $50, right?
Yeah.
That like then tries to be competitive with it. And there's probably people who have done similar things like that. And like I said, I just don't know about it. But I think that style of content, like be competitive without having to break the bank. It's a little hard though, just because the way Flesh and Blood is. And maybe I'm just so indoctrinated in the game now that I just am choosing to believe this, but like it kind of seems like you have to be willing to put up at least like $400 on a CC deck if you want to have a chance, because like a spring tunic alone is like $200 to $250, which is a big ouch. But
Yeah.
so I don't know. That's one of them, I guess. There's also, I feel like, more room for other format content to be out there. Like I'm a huge fan of Commoner. Like Commoner is probably one of my favorite ways to play Flesh and Blood. And again, I don't know if I'm just not seeing it, but I haven't seen a ton of people that are like really banging that Commoner drum. Like obviously Smithville has the Commoner League, right? But I don't know. I haven't seen too many people talking about Commoner decks, playing like Commoner gameplay and stuff like that. Obviously Fabrica did some stuff, but they mostly do the competitive thing. Those are the two that came to my mind. They obviously kind of go hand in hand with budget, and then those types of things are also much more appealing to new players, right? Like if you're trying to get somebody in the game, you can say, yeah, take $5 or $10 and you can have these 4 decks that you can then play against each other or play with other people
that still feel busted, you know.
Seriously, there are some disgustingly good things you can do in Commoner, and that's what's so wild about it. Like as long as you've leveled the playing field in terms of like we all get access equally to this relatively broken stuff that you can do in this format. It feels good because like each of you have the ability to do that, versus if you're loading into CC against somebody, or you sit down at an armory or an event and you show up with your $50 budget deck where you have Blossom of Spring as your chest piece, but your opponent has Tunic or whatever other thing, or you're playing against a Kano that's just like tricked out.
Yeah. I will say that in terms of the budget stuff, I know Az typically like tries to do more budget stuff, but certainly, the legendary issue is kind of, something that you just have to like kind of deal with. But I do think we're going to get closer to the ability to do that. So I was at Baltimore this week and I just like to look at the vendors, right? Just see what they got, what's priced at what. Rainbow Foil Coronet's Peak. This is a legendary headpiece. It's just ice.
Yep.
You can play in any of the ice heroes. Only $25, right? Which is not bad. Now, this is something that what was Coronet Peak from? Was that from Uprising? So
yeah.
I think Fab 2.0 is going to really help this budget thing. And maybe it's something that maybe we'll start to see more content with it, right? Maybe I'll start a Budget Buds gameplay series.
There's an idea.
Jot it down. But I think that we're going to get closer to that, right? Because people want cold foils, right? And I'll take the rainbow foils, right? If you don't want the rainbow, I'll take them. Just send them my way. But it's crazy. So I think we're going to get closer to that, and hopefully we get more content. One thing that even like Logan and I were talking about, and some others were talking about this weekend, is like we don't have enough sketches in Flesh and Blood content, right? Sketch comedy, which is like I think would be a lot of fun, and I already have one planned for when I do the Levi cosplay. So subscribe to the YouTube. But now you produced this show, right? You took a little break. You had a little baby, which is cool. Babies are awesome.
Yeah, it was all right.
Yeah, but we're all happy, and especially me, because you do make my life a lot better and easier. You make the show a lot better as well. And you produce this show. You help some other shows as well, and it's pretty great. I talk to all of them, and they're all just say Greg's the best. He's awesome, and that's. I'm like, I disagree. He's the worst. No,
dude's kind of a tool.
Yeah, he's the worst. But where did your background in audio come from?
Yeah, so way back in 2010, I was trying to figure out what the hell I was going to do when I grew up. And the town I was living in had a community college, and they just happened to have like an associate's degree in music production. So I was like, there's some records that I like a lot that sound really cool. And if I could have a recording studio in my basement and make money, that would be sweet. So I started doing that, and then, surprise, very young Greg becomes a dad, and I was able to finish my associate's degree. And then I just like had to find a job to be able to like earn enough money for me and my wife at the time to live, right? Then I ended up going back to school, and I got involved at another local university that had more of just a broad audio production degree, and I was like, that's what I enjoy, so I'm just going to pursue that, and we'll see what happens. I ended up working in the film industry for a while after I graduated. I went back to get my bachelor's with the idea that I was still going to produce music. But then the film department there just needed people to help out with that stuff. And I was like, well, I also love movies. And from there, a couple film producers that I worked with were like, hey, we know that you normally like record audio on set for us, but these people want to record a podcast, like this company that we're doing some corporate stuff for. Can you help with that? And then transitioned into that. And then at about that same time, I was also consuming a ton of Magic content. So then I was like, how can I make these two things work together? And so just on a whim, I sent the professor from Tulare Community College an email saying like, hey, I would love to help like mix audio for your videos. And he responded to me. He's like, honestly, and this was like so serendipitous. I totally expected to not get an email back from this dude because he's a professor and he's so busy making stuff.
He's gargantuan. Everybody knows him. You know?
Seriously, if you know trading card games, you know the professor. And he emailed me back. It was like within 4 hours of me sending him this email. It was like, hey, that would be phenomenal. Also, are you able to do video editing too? Because I have this video podcast that I do that I'm running out of time to edit that. And I was like, I happened to have just enough to be dangerous. So I told him, yeah, I should be able to do that. And I edited like 6 episodes of a video podcast for the prof. And from there, I was like, maybe I can help other content creators out. So I reached out to a bunch of other Magic creators and helped them on like one-off bases for a few different people. And then I found Flesh and Blood, and I was like, maybe I can help some people here too. So that's what I did.
You know, I will say, and you can attest to this, I was resistant because you did reach out to me.
True.
And I was resistant because
it's because that Greg dude's a tool. I don't know, man.
I don't know about that guy. No, I was resistant because I didn't doubt your merits, but I was like, I think people should be paid for good work, and I'm like in debt doing this thing, so like I'm like I don't know if I can go in more debt, but but I think it took another like audio engineer to reach out to me for me to be like, all right, maybe my audio does suck. So and then I reached out to you because you were first come first serve, and obviously you've done great, and we have a good relationship built around it now, and everybody else thinks you do great too, which is awesome. And even the audio engineer that did reach out the second time, I mentioned you, and he's like, oh, Greg's great. Obviously do work with him.
I bet it was Hoodwill, wasn't it?
It was Hoodwill, who did really help me out on the set review for Outsiders.
Hoodwill's great. He does good work too. He's a good dude.
Yeah, saw him this weekend. Hoodwill, if you're listening, we know what you are. You're awesome. Mm-hmm. Now, in terms, speaking of my audio sucking, what is some?
Okay, no. It's not that your audio sucked. It was just that like I want to polish it up, man. I just want to help you like be the best Tommy Fresh that you can be.
Thank you. You get me the freshest, the best. Yeah, dude. The expiration date's like it used to be a month. Now it's like we got 5 years on this bad boy.
Mm-hmm. Long shelf life on this podcast.
What is the most common mistake that creators make with audio?
Oh man. So there are a couple that I've run into more regularly than others. The first one is just like not understanding how their equipment actually works. So like, you buy this microphone. One of the most frequent ones that I see and that drives me the craziest is like the Blue Yeti. That's like the budget USB microphone that most podcasters use. And by and large, it's a fine microphone. It just gives you a little too much control to the point where, like, if you don't really understand all the knobs that are on that thing, like, you can really set yourself up for failure. So that's one of the things. The other thing that I see a lot is just there's a lot of technical stuff to producing a podcast that you don't really anticipate going in, like understanding how to set the equipment up so that it records properly, understanding how to manipulate things on the back end to make things actually sound good, as opposed to just pushing buttons and sliding faders and levers and stuff like that. But setting gain is probably the second thing that I run into the most, where it's just like, somebody will send me audio, or I'll hear audio on somebody's podcast, and it just sounds like their microphone was on fire when they were recording it.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things that, like, it hurts my heart for them, because I know this can be avoided, and I just want to help so it doesn't happen again, type of thing,
Yeah, I understand that. And like, as an avid podcast listener myself, I have also, when the audio is a little off, you're just like, even on like professional stuff, like they're always good. And then like the one episode, something's off, and you're just like,
that one episode where there's like 3 people in a room and they each have their own microphone, but one of them is like a little bit too low, or like for whatever reason was like their microphone was just muted for the first like few minutes of the podcast. Yeah. So you can only hear them, but you hear them like from the room like this, and it's so annoying.
Yeah. I understand, and I understand you reaching out to me, because like, also like I think the toughest thing, especially for podcasts, like, I mean, well, actually most of the podcast, probably all the Flesh and Blood podcasts do it over like online. Nobody's in the same room really, right?
I think Banished Zone.
Banished Zone,
only one going right now where they're sitting in the room next to each other talking.
Yeah,
and as soon as like we're doing right now, you bring Discord into it, and it adds a whole nother layer of like other technical things that can get weird.
Because you don't have control over what's going on. Like, I don't have control over what you're doing. You don't have control over what I'm doing. And, I used, for a while I was using Zencaster, right? Which was like super convenient, right?
Something that I recommended. Oops.
Well, actually, I heard about it when I was on Attack Action podcast. That was the first time I heard about it. And it was like, okay, I'll start using this. And it was great until I don't know what happened with the program, but that's why we don't have a episode with Carolina, right? It totally got fucking just crashed.
Yeah, I don't know. There was some weird stuff they were kind of becoming a public company then too. Like they were doing like a weird GoFundMe style type thing. So that's a whole other bag of worms.
Yeah.
So.
Speaking back to the worms, nice callback. It's good, and I'm glad that you're helping me, because I've tried to learn the audio stuff the best I can. Right, I have a decent mic, I have an audio interface, and I want to make it sound as good as I can. But there's stuff in post that I just didn't know how to do, and you've tried to even walk me through it, and I'm just like, I don't know. Like,
it's a lot. There have been several people that I've tried to help, and every time I do it, like, it's like I'm trying to make you drink water out of a fire hose, because there's just so much information that I'm throwing at you. Because it's stuff that I spent almost 6 years of higher education learning about, and then 8 years of actual professional application. So like I could teach you, and it would take time, right? And I can step in and alleviate some of that stress and take that off your plate or other creators' plates who just want to do the more fun stuff of having a conversation with somebody, talking about something, and then somebody like me can help make a polished final product that they can be proud of. So
I think it works out. I don't like to consider myself the talent, but that's what I am. No.
you know,
You guys got to deal with it. You're just the talent over here.
Hey, listen, I don't want to say you're talented, but you are the talent.
Oh, thank you. All right, you check my rider. It's only green M&Ms. But anyway,
Whatever you say, Eddie.
So let's do the fresh faves. As you know, that you've edited and listened to this podcast many times, we do the favorite things from Flesh and Blood cards. So we will start, Greg, with who is your favorite hero?
Oh man, this is nearly an impossible question for me to answer because I'm such a Timmy that I'm so easily drawn from one thing to another to another. However, the way I'm looking at this is if I could only play one hero in Flesh and Blood for the rest of my life, it would be Rhinar.
Oh, I did not expect that, to be honest. I've always known you as a Dorinthia guy, even a Prism fella at one point. Rhinar. It's you're talking my language. Why is that?
It's true, man. See, it's so funny. That was I mentioned earlier. I bought that Welcome to Wraith bulk 4-hero starter deck set thing, and Rhinar was the deck where I was like, this dude, let's go. He's green, he's angry, he's got a club, he's trying to bonk. So additionally there was just this I don't understand this discard thing, so I'm gonna try and understand why it's doing this, because taking away a card from my opponent to be able to block seems really powerful. It's funny, fast forwarding now, in the right context it is, but at the same time,
yeah,
Rhinar only has vanilla damage right now, but that's a whole nother podcast discussion.
Yeah.
But yeah, Rhinar was just the hero that I obsessively wanted to learn, and then, you'll see here in a second. I guess I'll just jump to it. My favorite weapon is the Ravenous Meat Axe. I love that thing so much. It's so fun. And the thing that I know about myself in playing card games is I'm here to have fun. There's definitely a Johnny and a Spike aspect of me, but by and large, I want to sit down and I want to have fun with these cards. And you could swinging that axe is just so great, and I feel so alive when I do it. Plus that's the first. I bought that cold foil. I think that was one of the first cold foil weapons that I just bought myself because it was pretty inexpensive. It just looks so good and I love it. So yeah, to roll both of them into one, it's Rhinar with the Ravenous Meat Axe in the Savage Lands if we're playing Clue.
Oh, Meat Axe is awesome, right? And I actually had a conversation with a local bud, Nick, who's out there. I don't know if you're listening. We know you are.
Shout out, Nick. We are. Yep.
Mm-hmm. And Nick is a great Lexi player and has built a really sweet Riptide list, but also has been known to throw around the Meat Axe Rhinar and perform very well. Nick and I met in the finals of my Road to Nats qualifier. So he beat me with Lexi, but that's all right. I forgive him. But we had a long conversation about Brandish and Meat Axe over the weekend. We was because we're talking a lot about Monarch, which we'll get to in a bit. But
okay,
Brandish into Meat Axe seems just that seems pretty cool, right? And especially in limited, right?
Because Brandish is what? It's a 1 cost.
1 for 3 go
red,
again.
It's a 1 cost 3 go again. And if
red.
it hits your next weapon attack, it's +1, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've messed around with that card in Commoner. I love that card.
Mm-hmm.
That's really intriguing because if you hit that 6 on that discard too,
it's basically Hexagore, right? It's 2 for 6. So,
a blue 2-card hand could get you there.
Yeah, that's it. That's all you need. But anyway, because we were talking a lot about limited, and we'll get to that in a second. But now, what's your favorite equipment, Greg?
shout out to Colin from the Attack Action Podcast. My favorite equipment in this game is the treasure chest. It is the Trench of Sunken Treasure.
Oh, yeah.
That card is, one, it's gorgeous.
Yes.
I also love pirates. And 3, like, that ability is so strange and kind of weird, like, off meta things like that are like, they spark so much joy in me. So, like, seeing that, and then also the fact that I happened to be lucky and pull one from one of my boxes of Outsiders, of like, oh, I love that card so much.
I totally get it. I mean, I played it all weekend. I mean, the card is, and I got it signed by Federico Massetti, which
I know you did.
Yeah, it's awesome. That card is so like, it's not mid,
Card
but
does
like,
things to me, man. It does things to me.
But it's just there to make, in my opinion, to make Riptide a well-oiled machine. And I love cards like that. It's not inherently powerful. It blocks for 1. It doesn't. You're basically pitching your arsenal for a red or for one resource, right? So it's not necessarily powerful. Blocks 1, has Arcane Bear, which is already just good stats already, and then it has that extra ability. The card is gas, and I'm glad you said that. It's awesome. The treasure chest is amazing. Now, what about your favorite run-of-the-mill cards? Your attack action cards, your non-attack action cards, your instants?
This is really hard for me. There are 2 cards, maybe 3, that depending on the day of the week and like how my day has been will probably affect what one I pick. But I'm just going to be a big kid and I'm going to commit to one of them. And it's Nourishing Emptiness.
Yeah.
I love that card so much. Like, and I mean, I like it on a few levels. Like, the art is amazing. I don't know if you can see it there. I got a print of that. It's my favorite art in the game, for one. I also just love the potential for like turn 1 having one of those and being like, are you going to give me a fuller hand, or are you going to commit more of your equipment here? Because I've got Dominate. Like, the turn 0 Nourishing Emptiness, like, even just if it's a 1 of in a deck, like, that by itself, like, is enough of a reason for me to run it. And I don't know that there's ever going to be a deck where I don't run 1 of Nourishing Emptiness.
Yeah, just the upside of they say, yeah, you go first and you have it, right? It's just that good. Now, I was playing a lot of Nourishing Emptiness in Levia because I think it was already just fine in Levia already, right? It's a 6, it blocks 3, whatever. Sometimes you get that little benefit if you start the game, or you can banish everything from your like if you like Dread Screamered into Nourishing Emptiness, you can get the Dominate pretty, not consistently, but you can make it work. But I was also running Remembrances in that list where you can present Nourishing Emptiness, and then they're like, no blocks. I think it's better. You could do the Remembrance first, but I think it's more fun to go make them say no blocks.
Undoubtedly, it's more fun to be like, yeah, you've got other attacks in your graveyard right now. So no, I don't care. I'll take 6 damage. I'm at 30 health.
Yeah. Who cares?
Surprise.
And then you're like, oh, Remembrance, shuffle the 3 attack actions into my deck, and now I have a bigger hand. No, oh God, it's a great answer. All great answers across the board, but those are the fresh faves, and they were great fresh faves, to be honest. And obviously, this is why we're buds, right? We understand each other. So now let's talk about Baltimore. Close out the show with some Baltimore talk, because a lot happened, right? I don't want to go into like how my weekend went, because if I'm being honest, like, I didn't have a lot of time to prepare and I didn't do well. So there you go. But I had a ton of fun. Got to hang out with a lot of buds. And got some really good FaceTime with people in LSS. I gotta say, Joshua Scott, the head rules judge fella, funniest person maybe on their team. I think. I mean, it's just It was incredible. Got to hang out with Josh a little bit, and he was just wonderful. And I think I'm going to try to get him on the podcast at some point. Now, I want to say they did some announcements, right? So, Dusk Till Dawn. We kind of knew about this set already, and they gave us some stuff, right? So, some of the big things here, the big takeaways were they showed Prism Advent of Thrones, the art.
Boy, did they.
Yeah, it's four intellect, 16 health. So it's a young hero, and it's kind of interesting. It feels like because we also know the name of the adult hero. Can you remind me what the adult hero's last name was?
Yeah, I've got it here. It's Prism Awakener of Soul is the new adult version of Prism,
which we'll get the reveal at the beginning of spoiler season, which is.
June 30th is the opening of that. That's when they're premiering that Prism to kick off spoiler season.
It's gonna be wild. It's gonna be a crazy 4th of July weekend.
Oh my gosh.
We're heading down the shore and looking at Dusk Till Dawn spoilers. So we don't know if they're similar, different. We don't know a lot about the adult version, but on its face, it sounds like we're getting a different young hero than a different adult hero. So
right. If I was a betting man like Jordan Kennedy, I would put a fair amount of money on the fact that they were going to be completely independent hero abilities.
Yeah, and that actually works out perfectly, right? It's a supplemental set. You can do that, right? So
totally. And we've already had Monarch, so there's already a plethora of light and illusionist cards for them to play and have fun with.
Yeah, and also Prism is still legal in Blitz, right? So, you don't want to like if they push the new Prism, adult Prism, or because sometimes it just doesn't translate in from young to adult, right? I mean, you kind of see what Reinar, right? Reinar's totally out of control. I mean, I actually don't think Reiner's that out of control good in Blitz. It just can win easily, like turn one. Yeah. But certainly a lot more viable than CC. Unfortunately, but I like that they can do that in a supplemental set. I don't have a lot of praises for supplemental sets, but that's one thing that's very nice. Right. So that's, the light illusionist people. And I know you're out there, Dalen Mack, Rabbit and Discord, just a ton of people. They're going to be eating good. We got the new Shadow Runeblade. And do you want to tell us who the new Shadow Runeblade is?
Yeah, Vincent is going to be the new Shadow Runeblade. And they got a lot going on in ways that I'm not sure I'm into. It's definitely not my cup of tea. I know Sin is like hyped through the roof for Vincent. And they look, to be fair, they look metal as hell, but yeah. I'm just, I'm too soft. I'm too much of a soft, scared boy for what Vincent's got going on.
Yeah, Vincent is, for the folks listening or watching and you want to look it up, and I'm sure a lot of you have seen it at this point, right? It was a huge announcement. We only saw the art, right? Because it's Federico Musetti who was at the convention. And
killed it, by the way. It looks incredible.
It's incredible, and it feels different than other Runeblades, which is very cool. And I'm sure Gary probably isn't as crazy about it because the purples aren't as
there's
prevalent.
Not nearly enough purple saturation in the art for Gary. You're right.
Gary, wait until you see the card border. There'll be a lot of purple, yada yada yada. But just relax, man.
Calm down, Gary.
If you're a Hellraiser fan, the movie, this is the card for you. We don't know what it does, but the one big takeaway for me though is I believe they confirmed it's going to be young and adult, and 20 health, 20 and 40. And I believe that means that, well, if you're speccing on Eclipse, we're sorry. I don't know. I don't know if Chain's making a return anytime soon. But it's tough. But,
You ready for my hot take on this?
Yeah,
Tommy?
hit me.
So I'm rereading because I was looking at this art from the on Fab TCG's website of the on the Dusk Till Dawn article. Looking at this full art, feeling a lot of things, but the paragraph right above the art talks about how Vincent, and I'm just going to read it. Vincent brings a new interpretation of the forbidden arts to gaming tables. Her ability to manifest dark arcana by rune gating it through the dimensional rift. Rune gating. So I can almost guarantee that that's like going to be their hero ability. Chain was soul shackling. And so that's going to be rune gating. And it mentions the dimensional rift. Here is my hot take. Dimensional Crossroads, which, if I'm not mistaken, doesn't see any play in Chain, and it didn't see any play in Chain. I bet that's going to be dummy busted in Vincent. I'm happy to be wrong, but that's my hot take. Somebody buy up all the Dimensional Crossroads while you still can.
Yeah, we're a financial podcast here.
This is financial advice. Buy those cards.
I will say, I believe when I first started playing in the Chain meta, Road to Nats, like before Seeds of Agony was banned, Dimensional Crossroads made an appearance in sideboards. I don't remember what for. It feels like eons ago, but yeah, rune gating, that's sounds like, well, you're shackling something, you're gating something. So this is what these, pesky shadow rune blades are trying to do. It's very exciting. Chain was my actual first hero, so I am excited to see what's going on. And I'm excited that we're getting shadow support, because that also means by way of
your baby girl's going to be getting some stuff. At least
she better
something.
Come on,
at least a set of non-attack action commons and rares that you'll be able to use.
Yeah, maybe. I it's funny enough. I had an opponent this weekend. I was talking to him. They were like, "Oh, how long you been playing with Riptide?" Yada yada yada. And I was like, "Actually, Levi is really my bread and butter, right? This is my girl. I play her a lot." And they're like, and I'm like, unfortunately, she's just a lot like Riptide, but like she's just not there, right? Like she just needs a little bit, and then she'll be just like really good. And they're like, you sound exactly like Azalea players about 4 months ago. So, and I was like, well, I hope our time is coming, because
if Shadow and by proxy Via gets the type of support that Ranger got from Outsiders, I'm terrified.
Oh yeah,
that would be wild.
Well, because when you're losing against Levi, you feel like it's the most powerful deck ever built.
Oh yeah, it's disgustingly oppressive.
Yeah, but when Levi is on the back foot, you feel like this is the worst deck I've ever seen in my life.
Uh-huh.
It's just like that. Maybe that's just the brute way.
Like that's like maybe the two most polar ends of the spectrum you can get in this game, because there's oops, I just took 13 blood debt, or like I'm sending 30 damage at you this turn. What are you gonna do?
or you pitch a blue, you Dread Screamer into a Graveling Growl. That's a 3-card 13. That's
Michael Hamilton math.
Yeah.
Like that's the type of thing that Mikey H is like looking very intensely at.
Mikey H. Shout out to Mikey H. I saw him this weekend as well. I didn't have, the win, but we'll get to that. Now, also something they mentioned, that Nationals kind of competitive season will have Monarch drafts, which is very cool. I'm a big fan of that. I think Nationals will feature Monarch draft. So they're splitting up the Outsiders draft format, because they said, well, we don't want another 6-month draft format. We want to bring back Monarch. Now, they probably have just a ton of Unlimited sitting around, but that's not for me to say. But it is making me really want to hit a bunch of Road to Nats, because, well, I could just play Levi the whole weekend at Nationals, right?
And even more than that, you can draft Levi. You can force draft Levi. Like, those are 3 of Tommy's favorite words right there.
Force, draft, and Levi.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's very exciting. We'll get more. It'll be kind of fun. They want people to kind of experience that draft format, because it was still in the height of COVID when the game came out, or when that set came out. So
literally, I would be the target demographic for that. Like, I'm somebody that came in after that. Like, it's weird. I can see why some people would maybe be a little low on it, but I think it's like, it's pretty poetic actually what they're doing, where they're like bringing this back, where it also ties into the main story arc. Like, I love it. I'm like big into the lore of that, and I like, maybe if we were going to put on our tinfoil hats, right? Maybe they just are trying to move some of that monarch out of their warehouses. But notwithstanding that, like, it's so cool that they're like, we love this format still. This set is still good to draft, and a ton of people deserve to be able to experience it in a competitive way. And I can respect that.
Yeah, and I think and it was the first set that they designed, right? I from my understanding. I think it is. I think it hits a lot of birds with one stone, right? You know, move Monarch, get people to play it, tie it into Dusk Till Dawn, like you just said. So it is very exciting. I'm stoked for it. I'm happy to, because I've only gotten to draft the Monarch once, and I had a blast. And I was playing Leviathan, of course, but. And Salad Fingers, aka Justin from the Buds Discord, was in that draft pod, and he forced Leviathan too, and we got matched up the first round, and I had more sixes, so you know it is what it is. But but I proceeded to lose to Daniel Rakowski next round, and did not.
I hear that dude's pretty good at the game.
He's decent. You know,
decent Dan. I think
I teach him a thing here and there, but some other fun stuff from the weekend. I just don't want to touch on the cosplay competition, which was great. Rachel took home the gold. Now, if you don't know who Rachel is, does Dash, and she was just on the Instant Speed podcast. So go check that out. Some guy named Flake does it, and she did the Nitro Mechanoid.
Dude, that was bananas.
Now, Greg, you saw pictures of it, right? You saw it on Twitter. It was even more insane in person. Like, I mean, like, I don't think the noises were there, but they were putting them there in my mind. But
they were there in spirit. Like, as a kid who read a bunch of comics, I can totally hear and see those things happening. Like, I have so much respect for them for doing that, because it's like, cosplaying in and of itself is hard.
Yeah.
But then they were like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm going to learn a bunch of electrical engineering and other like modeling things to be able to do to build this gigantic suit that will all interconnect together and also look rad as hell.
Yeah. And there was some great cosplays. We had a awesome looking Kano. Typonus, I think, got second. Typonus looked excellent. We had, I think, Reinar came third. Reinar was great. I did. Now, if anybody knows the Reinar cosplayer, I wanted to catch them and give them a Romping Club membership card just for. Right. But you know, if anybody knows and can connect me with them, I would love to send them that. And then we had a Blossom of Spring, I think, was fourth place, and there was a ton of other things. I did a cosplay, but I didn't make it myself, so I didn't enter. And I was also really sweating by the end of the day. I did my drip tide. I was in a very thick wool.
Literally dripping.
Yeah, it was dripping. not the right kind of drip. So shout out to all the cosplayers. They're great. Carolina did a great job doing the kind of emceeing the competition, and she was Leave No Witnesses, which was very cool. And then did gender bended Oldham on Sunday, which was also very cool. Now, there's some other events going on during the weekend, right, Greg? The first big one was the Pro Tour, right?
That was this weekend?
That was this weekend. So I just want to talk about the meta breakdown real quick. The most represented deck was Lexi, right? And Lexi was everywhere and very good. Next was Oldham, followed by Dromai. And then it drops off from there, like a pretty large margin. You got like some Bravos, Dashes, Katsu's, Briars, Azaleas, and then below that you get into the teens and whatnot. Now, it was interesting. I think a lot of pros were on Lexi, right? I think even Michael Hamilton was on Lexi, and
Mikey H brought Lexi,
yeah. And I had heard he was going to be on Dromai, but that's obviously
keeping us on our toes.
Yeah, well, Roger would have really given the business if he brought Dromai.
Yeah.
Shout out to Roger too, because Roger is really like hates Dromai, and also,
my gosh,
yeah, he's just the best. Now, so it was split format, so the drafting kind of shakes things up there, but as to be expected, we had 4 Lexis in the top 8. Andrew Rothermelt, Maximilian Klein, Matt Folks, who Pro Tour Lille winner, and Brody the Kid Sparlock, who just is, I don't know.
A monster. I don't know what that kid eats, but
ham sandwiches.
He exclusively ham sandwiches, like a diet of ham sandwiches, and I can be good like Brody, maybe. It's crazy.
Yeah. Now, we had one Azalea. Jake Warburton was on Azalea, and which is great. That means Outsiders did what it was supposed to do. We had 5 Rangers. We had Michael Fang, a local to me, who obviously is also calling Cincinnati winner, and I think a Battle Harden here or there somewhere. He top 8s all the time. He's a great player.
Seriously.
He was on Oldham, Fatigue Oldham, which is the bane of my existence because I don't have time to watch 3-hour games. And then we had 2 Dromais. I'm gonna butcher the first name. I think it's Jua Sarnalampi.
I think so. I think I heard them say on coverage it was Yuha is their first name.
Okay, that makes more sense actually. And then the Empress of Volca herself, Mara Ferris, who just totally embodies the deck and really does well. So skip forward.
Hero.
Mara Ferris. She's the best. And skip forward. The finals was Michael Fang and Mara. So when I knew the top 8, I said the exact same thing. It's very contested in personally for me who I wanted to win. Right. I was like, I want Mara to win, but I want Oldham to get the points and also a local to win, right? I can't help that. I want locals to win. I know everybody wanted Mara to win. Not everybody, but a lot of people wanted Mara to win. And she made the finals, and it was a testament to. Now, did you watch the finals?
I was listening to the finals because I was doing other stuff around the house where I couldn't be actively watching, but I was listening and half watching. It was something. It was not what I was expecting, and it was not what the casters were expecting either, especially considering Michael's semifinals match against Yuha was the polar opposite. That was the fatigue, I'm going to grind you into dust, Oldham deck. And then Michael was like, I'm assuming they just knew that Mara was more on the aggro kind of teched to prey on Lexi's style of the deck and not as much dragons and recycling dragons and summoning more dragons. He pulverized her, right? Literally and figuratively, just came out swinging for the fences. And I think the match was 28 minutes total or something like that versus the hour and 50-minute semifinal that they had. Yeah, it was something.
Yeah, as someone who was very hungry at the time, I'm pretty glad it was 28 minutes because I too remember the semifinals where I left watching multiple times and came back. Oh, it's still happening. And this kind of speaks to the masterfulness of Michael Fang, right? He understands the differences and how to play his deck because it's still the same deck for him, whether he's going against Yuha or Mara, right? So it's pretty ecstatic. Michael Fang, well-loved member of the community. Yeah. It was great. Mara, obviously, did an amazing job, and she has every reason to be proud of herself, and I know that she is.
Oh yeah.
And it was honestly a great finish to a great weekend, and it was very cool. Now, the calling, which is not on coverage, was a little bit different, right? Well, not so much in the the percentages of heroes represented. So the top three were still Lexi, Oldhim, Dromai. But unlike the other tournament, we actually had Riptides in this tournament, which is interesting.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's awesome. I was actually quite heartbroken that not even a single person registered Riptide for the Pro Tour.
I know. I thought at least one, and we had a couple Riptides make day 2 of the calling. And we also didn't have a single Arachne. We had some Arachnes sneaking around in the calling as well, and I think that might have been it, right? Because we did have one Levia that in the Pro Tour that went 4-0 in day 1.
Yes, we did.
And then 0-3 the draft, which is just, hey, I don't know.
What can you do?
Yeah, what can you do? I mean, that's just, I even talked to Ethan about it. Man said, he's like, that's the Levia way, right? You can't just, you just can't win everything. So the calling, got shaken up a little bit differently. In terms of the top 8, we had a Dash, we had 3 Oldhims, we had a Viscerai, Zach Bunn, and Matt Rogers. Actually, I say all the names: Merrick Kemp on Dash, Matt Rogers on Oldhim, Taylor Crawford on Lexi, Randall Sims on Oldhim, Zach Bunn on Viscerai, Jacob Kissel on Azalea, Dave Lynn on Oldhim, and Matthew W. from Magnolia on Lexi. Now, Merrick Kemp ended up taking it down with Dash. So, kind of, I don't like Dash just keeps finding its way into these top finishes.
Yeah, they really do. It's something. I'm really impressed with the versatility of Dash. Like their ability to go back and forth between it's all it's almost the other side of the coin to Oldhim, right? Like they also have an aggro plan and more of a slow down, grind you out plan. It's really interesting to me too that Dash preys on Oldhim in that sense, where they if they more so specifically tech to stop that, they can, right? It's funny looking at even just the total meta breakdown. The calling was what I was more so expecting to see versus the breakdown for the Pro Tour, and this just is another reason that reinforces that I'm not a pro type of thinker, because the fact that there were only 20 Azalea at the Pro Tour surprised me, or 57 in the calling.
Yeah, it is interesting. I think pro players probably maybe give away too much of their secrets, and I think Lexi really is the business right now. Now it is interesting with Lexi, right? So 133 Lexis in the calling, which was the most out of any hero. 91 Lexis in the Pro Tour, which is the most out of any hero, and had a good showing in top 8s, but no wins, right? It took the tournament by storm, but couldn't get across the finish line. So it's one of those things, right? We're going to be dealing with Lexi for a while just because of this, right? They don't get more points.
They're not going anywhere anytime soon. I couldn't even tell you. They're bottom third of the Living Legend leaderboard, probably, aren't they?
They have a Nationals win, Canadian Nationals. I know that, and I can't think of any other major win. I mean, I always talk about Isaac making top 8 of the first U.S. Nationals with her, and then having the bad luck. But it was the points that never were. But,
boy, were they.
Yeah. But the cool thing here is, another Azalea in the top 8, which is good to see. Viserai making an appearance. I mean, obviously Zach Bunn is a great player and has been playing the deck for basically the whole span of the game.
Right.
So
like a very much outspoken Runeblade simp, but also just particularly loves Viserai. Yeah, it's wild to me to see them. Like, it makes me wonder. Like, Zach is obviously like a really good player, right? Like, he's on the Wolfpack team with Mikey H and Roger and Mike Fang and all these people, right? So he's a very good Flesh and Blood player. But it makes me wonder, like, I guess I shouldn't say it makes me wonder. It gives me hope that I could register in an event, right, with the hero I love, and maybe Gem will grace me a little bit with more matchups than not that I have some, like, more of a 50-50 into, you know, because there are definitely some matchups out there that, like, Viserai just is not excited to see, right?
I agree, and it's tough, right? Because you can just be a specialist, right, and just be really good, but there's all these like these matchups, like and Riptide's one, right? Like there's like it's like for me, at least my version of Riptide was like dodge the Dromai, dodge the Kano, which I didn't run into any Kanos, but I did run into a Dromai, and and also I guess dodge the Riptides that are playing Dreadbore, which I did run into. Which was,
oh no!
I ran
just really sink your ship with that one.
It was Greg. I'm telling you, buddy. The game was still relatively close. The game went the full 55 minutes, and my deck was just 20 defense reactions left. There was no more attacks. Even after I remembrance and popped my quiver, it was
that was bad.
It was terrible. I hated myself, but more so than normal. Now, obviously, I want to give big props to Merrick Kemp winning.
Yeah, totally.
A calling with Dash. That's awesome.
And honestly, like, especially a calling beside an event like that, because there are so many really good players that just happened to not make day 2 of the Pro Tour who then register for the calling. So it's like arguably an equally as aggressive and like strong field as the Pro Tour, because there's I don't know, half of the players that were in the PT day 1 have maybe dropped or decided to play the calling instead. So you still have all of that competition.
Oh yeah, my second round of the calling was against Jacob Ball. And I was like,
that dude knows how to play Dash.
Yeah. Well, he was playing Lexi. Funny enough.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I'm telling you, the pro teams were just like, Lexi's the best, and it certainly is. But you know, it's interesting. I do want to shout out to the Battle Hardened. I don't want to really talk about the heroes that won the Battle Hardened or doing well, because it's a dead format. Not dead format, but like the Oldham and Icelander were rampant in the tournament, and they're not going to be legal as of Friday. Yeah. So
one last dance, you know, whatever.
Yeah, and I do want to shout out to, let me actually grab whoever won. But I do want to shout out Rose Smith, Rosie Snow Leopard in the Buds Discord, who did top 4 on Icelander, pummel Icelander, I will say. You know, Rose loves to do the pummel stuff, playing Kraken's Aethervein, which is just the spice. Now, Dylan Dietz won the tournament against Prism with Icelander. But shout out to the Battle Hardened players. They got their nice Spider Bite play mats, which are very nice as well. So, all in all, great weekend of Flesh and Blood. How was it watching the coverage, and how did the coverage team do?
You know, man, it was pretty awesome. Like, I feel really lucky that I had the time to be able to even kind of passively listen to it the way I did. But even just like, not to be overly cliche here, but like the fact that our game has such awesome people doing commentary and providing coverage, and that like a dude like me can be sitting at his house in Kansas and like watching the best of the best play this game that we all love. Like, it's just phenomenal. There was Just so much good flesh and blood to watch, and like it doesn't really happen, but I feel like I get better at the game whenever I watch coverage like this, because like it's kind of that fallacy of like, you sleep on your textbook the night before a test and like by osmosis you'll learn something. That's the way, like, I've convinced myself that's what happens when I watch coverage. But like also, like, I just like so many of the people that are doing coverage and hearing some of their insights and stuff, and then getting to follow the players. Like I think I might have messaged like just the Fresh Mafia, or it might have just been in the buds in general. But like there are so many names that I recognize when I scroll through like the standings on Fab TCG's website, which also, this was maybe the best thing of the weekend. Now they were like actively on their website updating like the pairings. Like from Gem was just a page that I could go look at and see who's playing who each round and stuff. Which is just so much nicer than having to like scour Twitter to see if somebody's posting the standings pages. But there are just so many people that like kind of through the internet now and through this game that like I know and like I'm kind of rooting for. Like I like Zach Bunn a lot. It was so cool to get to kind of follow them through the calling and see them go and have that good run, and then obviously watching Mara and everybody else, and like rooting for Patty Shaw, who's there at the calling, like taking a run at stuff, because Pat and I have a lot in common. We're both dads that are too busy to be traditional TCG players, so like living vicariously through him was a ton of fun for that weekend too.
Yeah, it's something that I'm almost not jealous of, but it's like there is that one thing that I miss when I'm at these tournaments. I can't watch, or I mean, I could go onto the blog, and I did that a couple times, which was a great addition. I agree.
Yeah.
And coverage, from what I heard, did great. You got a great team on there: Flake, DM, Tannen, Brian Gottlieb. Who else do we have? Brendan Patrick. It was a good crew, and they seemed to be having a ton of fun. And it seemed to be so I will say I watched one match, and it was, I think, Friday morning. I woke up, I went to the hotel gym before I went over to the convention center, because I didn't have to be there until like noon for a Classic Constructed event. And I watched one match. It was the Michael Hamilton versus Colin. I forget his last name. It's Colin Swisher. And it was Lexi versus Azuri. And I will say Colin didn't respect the rain razors, and then lost. Yep. But it is what it is. Sometimes you got to play for the win. I get it. It felt like the most interactive gameplay to watch that we've ever had in this game. And I don't want to puff up Brian Gottlieb's ego or something, but Brian, if you're listening, great job, and hopefully having you on the podcast in a couple weeks. But it seemed to be, it feels great to play. It feels great to watch, which was my big takeaway from the weekend. So I don't know, man. I think this game's going places.
It really is, and it's really cliche to say this, but like every set they make is just like, I can't believe they thought to do that. That is so stinking cool, right? Yeah. Like the treasure chest, that is so cool. It's such a weird thing that I would never in a million years think of. And like the way Uzuri works, right, with playing peekaboo with those cards, and you think you're just maybe getting 2 and frailty token, but it's actually Ravenous Rabble, and then they're also playing something else after that. It just, there's so much tension, so much more tension, it feels like, in every single play of Flesh and Blood, which, like you said, it makes it so much more interesting to watch. Not that it wasn't interesting to begin with, it's just adding dimensions to the game where it's just becoming so fascinating and so awesome.
Yeah, it really is, and it's something that it doesn't feel on rails anymore. And even when it felt like it was on rails, it was a great game. But now we creativity is huge, and it's really showing its fangs here. Michael Fang. But hey, listen. This has been a great show, Greg. Thank you for coming on, my friend. I think we have a great friendship, and I'm glad to have you on because, as I always say, like good vibes and good buds, right? That's what it's all about. Now, do you have anything to plug? Please plug things, my friend.
Yeah, totally. I should have been more prepared for this part. Now I'm going to look up because I have on a whim, I decided to make a YouTube channel.
Oh yes, you did.
Because,
God, I didn't.
Like just because I was like, you know what the heck? Well, first of all, on a whim, I decided like, yeah, I'm gonna buy 2 boxes of History Pack 1 because I'm a degenerate and I love History Pack 1. But then also I was like, you know what? I might as well just record these just because. Yeah. So I did, and I posted those on YouTube. So if you want to go watch me open 2 boxes of History Pack and talk about nothing, I'm also theoretically wanting to make some gameplay content, maybe make other weird content at one point. It's very much so like if I happen to have time, I'm going to do this. If you want to follow me, it's Demolition Crew Fab on YouTube. Because I love the card Demolition Crew from Welcome to Wraith. Otherwise, I'm in the Buds Discord. You can find me there. I'm Darth Prentiss there. I'm also on Twitter at Darth Prentiss. It's Darth_Prentiss. Come hang out in the Buds Discord. It's the best Flesh and Blood community.
I happen to agree, Greg. It's awesome. I love the Buds. And you also have worked on some like short films. Do you want to plug those?
Hey, Buds. It is Greg from the future here to help out Greg from the past. When I was doing the plug section, when I recorded with Tommy, I totally misspoke for like all of the projects that I was rattling off because I didn't do a good job of preparing for that section of the podcast. So there is a Twilight Zone-esque short film called Abandoned. It was one of the first projects I was a location sound recordist for. It's pretty good. I would recommend watching it. There's also a couple short films that I did with one of my best friends from back in Michigan. There's one called Scones, which is about a woman who is fed up with their corporate life and decides, you know what, maybe it's time for me to finally open up that bakery I always wanted to. And the ending is not what I expected at all, and I think you'll probably find it funny in a dark way. The other one is called Trash Man. It's kind of like a futuristic film where a dude literally, his job is to sort trash, and it follows like a day in his life. It's pretty funny too. The last thing I'm going to shout out, there is a documentary that I worked on. It's called Behind These Bars, and it's not released yet, but I'll have Tommy post a link to the commencement of the inmates in this documentary. It's following this class of inmates who actually had the opportunity to receive a bachelor's degree while incarcerated in West Michigan. It's really compelling. I would recommend you watch the commencement. It's like a 5-minute clip, and the full-length documentary is about a 70-minute documentary. Is supposed to be out later this year, and I did dialogue editing for that one. So check those things out.
Awesome. Check them out, please. Greg does great work, obviously. If you listen to this podcast, you know. But you all can continue to find me on Twitter at FreshBudsPod. Check out the YouTube if you're not watching it, here. Check it out. Give us a subscribe. We're gonna figure out how to get.
I want to see Gary get sacrificed. Definitely subscribe to the YouTube.
That's like a huge thing. Everybody wants to see Gary get sacrificed,
especially because then once Gary is sacrificed, I can become the dude with the G name that helps host the Bud Rush Bellow on Wednesday nights.
That's it. It's like Highlander. There can only be one.
Yeah, exactly.
Check out the YouTube, give the old subscribe, like, comment, and all that stuff helps the algorithm. We are slaves to the algorithm. I'm going to figure out how to give away these promos and the playmat. The Buzz Discord's amazing. Patreon's cool too, if you want to check that out. And as Greg knows and anybody else knows, I like to finish talking on the podcast about food. what's some food? Do you have anything prepared? If not, I have a great question to pose.
Ooh, so I do have something because this is one of the other things that I was like, okay, we're going to talk about food. And there's this recipe that I got off of Instagram because that's the world we live in now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And wow, it's crock pot Maria tacos.
Ooh,
I found this, dude. It blew me away. It was so good. And I was pretty intimidated at first because it was like, you've got to get all of these like 3 different types of chili peppers, and you boil them in water after you've de-seeded them, and then you blend them up with some tomato, and then you add that to the crock pot with this big thing of chuck roast. So it's these beef tacos that are just, I mean, I don't want to toot my own horn too much, but they're revelation. Like, they are so good. And like, I'm sure they pale in comparison to like some like real authentic tacos, but for what I can do in my own kitchen, like, I love them. And I think about them probably 3 times a week.
Well, hey, I mean, I think I've seen the exact same recipe and I've been meaning to try it. And beer tacos are awesome, and it doesn't have to be authentic if you're making it at home, right in the middle of Kansas, you know.
Yep.
I do still want to ask you the question: what's the greatest pepper,
Yes.
Greg? I think about this question a lot because I like debate it in my head throughout the day, right? Do you want to know where I've come to my conclusion, Greg?
What is the greatest pepper? Yes, tell me the conclusion you've come to, and I'll see if we're on the same brainwave.
So I like spicy stuff, right? I really love spicy food. So I'm thinking about flavor. But I'm also thinking about flavor, right? Bell pepper is obviously a staple. Habanero, chipotle, they're very approachable in terms of the heat. Sure. Great. Once you get like Scotch bonnets and scorpions and all that, it's just to be hot. I have to say, it sounds basic, and it's just maybe it's like sometimes just old fashioned is good. I think jalapeno is the most versatile pepper. It can give you heat, it can give you that nice peppery flavor, and it can be used in a lot of different ways. So that's where I'm at on the peppers.
Interesting. So I would definitely give you that the jalapeno is the most versatile pepper because, like you said, like you could core it, you know, get all them seeds out of there, and it's just got that perfect pepper flavor that you're going for. Or you just leave all that in, and it gives you that nice kick that you're looking for, that nice zip. Honestly, man, I love a good orange bell pepper.
Orange
That's
is
it for me.
Underrated in terms of the colors of the peppers.
Honestly, I think that's the best. Green pepper, I think, honestly, green pepper is overrated.
Well,
the only time green pepper is good is if it's sauteed with onions and it's on like a bratwurst or like a cheesesteak or something like that.
We're talking. Yeah. Gosh. Yeah, well, hey, that concludes our new segment, Pepper Time.
Pepper Talk.
Pepper Talk. We're peppering it in there. But hey, Greg, this has been great. I hope all the buds enjoyed it, and I hope all of you enjoyed Baltimore. If you watched or were there, and if you saw me and said, hey, I really appreciate you. And also to the one opponent that came up to me and said, surprised to see you're not drinking. I don't know if that means I have a brand or a problem or that I'm just a good time. I'm going to go with the last one. So, which was
what a weird backhanded insult.
wait, you know, I was like, I thought it was pretty funny, but it also came off pretty serious. Like he was concerned. So,
oh my gosh, arguably that's even funnier. And like, I mean, no offense to you and your liver, but
I was on vacation, man. I was chilling.
You know,
yeah, he saw me at the hotel bar, so which you know, it was kind of like a second home this weekend. So, but anyway, all right, that's it. Everybody, please just enjoy your life and have a great weekend.